They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I think Ghost of Yotei proves that the message of revenge is most forcefully delivered by a wronged woman with a large sword collection. Ghost of Yotei is the big-budget sequel to 2017's Ghost of Tsushima. Like its predecessor, Yotei is an open-world action-adventure game set in feudal Japan that focuses on an archetypal lone wolf adrift in a world that has wronged them. Yotei's story is set in 1603, some 350 years after the events of Tsushima. Where Tsushima was set on the southern island of the same name, Yotei is set on Japan's mountainous northern Ezo prefecture, known today as Hokkaido, home to the Ainu people. It follows Atsu, a young woman whose family is slain by the Yotei Six, a gang of murderous ronin led by a fallen lord named Saito. Traumatized and left for dead, Atsu embarks on a single-minded quest for revenge. She writes the names of the Yotei Six on a list and begins checking them off with their own blood. Wait, hang on, I think I've heard this story before.
That woman deserves her revenge. And we deserve to die.
Yeah, alright, look, it's essentially the plot of Kill Bill. Now some might hold that against Ghost of Yotei, but I'm certainly not going to. What I will say is that Atsu is a character that took me a while to warm up to. At the beginning of the game, she was so traumatized and closed down that she was about as relatable as a featureless slab of marble. However, the characters she meets across her adventure slowly help Atsu reconnect with her humanity. Before long, her confident, roguish personality begins to shine through the cracks. In terms of its overall gameplay, Yotei confirms something I already knew about Tsushima, that, as open world games go, it was about as rock solid as it gets. Thus, it seems that Yotei understands it doesn't need to shake things up all that much. Combat feels very similar to the previous game, a kind of rock, paper, scissors mode of weapon selection, depending on the enemy I'm facing. Standard enemies wielding katanas can be met with a katana. Those wielding poles and flails were best faced with new and flashy dual katanas. Heavy enemies can be fended off with an odachi, that's a sword that looks like a really long katana. Almost everyone is weak against the kusarigama flail, which is a hook on a chain that is lethal at close or medium range. What I will say about Yotei is that despite the loneliness of Atsu's quest, the world itself is anything but lonely. In contrast to Tsushima, which felt like it had long, empty tracts of map that helped sell the sense of being a wandering samurai, Yotei feels very busy. I couldn't ride my horse more than a few hundred meters without running into a point of interest, or a potential quest giver, or a random enemy encounter, or an enemy stronghold, or a hot spring, or a bounty target, or a shrine, or a bamboo strike, or a wolf den. I could go on and on. Rather than feeling like I was lost in the wilderness, I felt like I was being peppered with things to do. It felt like the majority of quests and side quests have a fight break out every few minutes to help pad out the total playtime. And look, I like samurai sword fighting as much as the next person. I did a lot of it in Tsushima because it felt really good, and if anything, it feels even better here. But it did feel like I was doing a lot of it. It felt like no sooner would I put one fight against 5 enemies to bed than another one would begin a few minutes later, over and over and over across entire quest chains. Turns out, I can have too much of a good thing. I thought my desire to chop guys up with a sword was endless, but Yotei's dependence on throwing sword fights at the player wore even me out. Thankfully, as I said, there's plenty of other things to do between missions. Like the new camp system, for instance. Look, I'm going to be so honest, I say system, camping is more of an interactive pause screen if it's anything. You can cook foraged food to give Atsu a buff, craft some spare ammo, or play your shamisen for the vibes. The camp's most important feature is that it grants you an opportunity to rest, heal up, and restore all your resolve points. This is something that Tsushima didn't have, and Yotei feels much less punishing on harder difficulties as a result. Another change is to the way that Atsu levels up. In Ghost of Tsushima, experience points were used to unlock the game's wider skill tree. Here, they're unlocked through completing specific activities like shrines and wolf dens. This is another way the game encourages the player to get off the golden path and explore a bit, because the benefits for doing so are significant. The good news, as I said, is that these activities are everywhere. They can most easily be found by keeping an eye out for the telltale Tweety bird that would swoop into frame as I got near and guide me to each location. Atsu doesn't feel the same tension between stealth and head-on combat that Ghost of Tsushima's hero Jin felt. She'll do whatever she must to complete her self-imposed mission, no matter how ugly or violent. Maybe I was just too wrapped up in Jin's struggle last time, but this felt freeing to me. This time around, I felt like there weren't any considerations on what I upgraded beyond what fit best within my preferred playstyle. Atsu's wider moveset is also much more aggressive than Jin's. As a trained samurai, Jin was free to sit back and let his enemies come to him. Atsu can do that too, but is better able to get proactive, breaking guards and laying in a few extra hits. Her weapons make her rapid and deadly at any range, and certain mid and late game upgrades help make her that much harder to land a hit on. I also enjoyed hunting down bounties. I think all open world games of this kind should have some kind of bounty hunting side activity. I loved the monster hunting in Witcher 3, and Ghost of Yotei feels like it's taken some inspiration from that here. Bounties are taken from community notice boards in towns dotted around the map. These give Atsu her target and a last known location. Once in the area, Atsu can talk to the locals and look for clues to lead her to a quarry. Bounty targets rarely go down without a hard fight, and I was rewarded with a bit of special gear for getting through it, in addition to a generous wad of cash. As such, taking bounties early on was a great way to build some savings, setting me up for when it came time to pay for various gear upgrades later in the game. Ghost of Yotei is an excellent video game with a handful of imperfections that grated at me the longer I played. But I did keep playing. Atsu is an excellent lead, a complicated character that slowly reveals her secret heart to the player through deft writing and a career-best performance from actor Erika Ishii.
My name is Atsu.
Even if I felt like I was doing an awful lot of it, the combat does feel ever so slightly more refined on the original, the hot swapping between weapons more fluid and necessary than it was before. The world is larger and more alive than it was in Tsushima, though it can at times feel a little more crowded with people and activities requiring my attention. The visuals will be remembered come awards season with a level of art direction that rivals 2025's other open world Japanese adventure, Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've barely had time to go into the art design, but oh my god, I could do a whole video just on that by itself. This is a gorgeous video game. As a sequel to one of PlayStation's best and most striking exclusives, I had very high expectations for Ghost of Yotei. I'm pleased to say that it met the overwhelming majority. This is a game I can see myself playing well beyond the review period. Like I said, for all the little complaints and caveats I've listed in this review, I'm still playing it. I want to stay in this world and spend more time here, even though my review playthrough is now complete. And that, I think, is the greatest compliment I can pay it. Play.